Okay, so I tried to think about something funny to do for the beginning of this second video of Musings on the Divine, and all I could come up with was this duck. And I genuinely don't know what to say about the duck. This is really like, I mean, if you're not laughing because of the duck, it's like that's just funny. But no, I seriously had a question. Like, we were praying right before this, and no, this is serious. Like, this is actually not the thing that actually like struck me was that I said, like, we finished by saying a Hail Mary, and so I finished by, we got to say, like, blessed are you among women. I said among, and you said amongst, right? But we both said thy. And so my question is, wouldn't the amongst make more sense, actually? So I think I was wrong for that.
Well, I mean, I feel like we only did thy there. And there's a few other places we could have used Older English. Where
do we switch it up?
We did switch it up. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah. We're just sort of bilingual people do the same thing.
Yeah, we're sort of like bilingual.
Yeah. It's kind of like when I start in French and I end in Spanish and no one understands.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, it was like when I was down in San Antonio recently, and I started using Latin to try to talk to somebody because I had no idea how to say it in Spanish.
Did it work?
Well, no, it didn't. The word was nombre, and I was trying to find. So I said nomen, and it didn't catch on.
Didn't work. Yeah.
No, seminarians thought it was hilarious. But anyway, the second video, we're welcome back for you who were dumb enough to come back.
We're wondering what the heck is going on.
Yeah, honestly, we probably should get to the topic. So, I am so focused right now.
So this is Rory Trainer.
I am Rory Trainer. I am a seminarian for the Diocese of Manchester, the greatest diocese in the world, if you were unclear about that. This is my sister, Killarney. She's an author, writer, music. No, you do some music. You also direct films. You do screenplays. You're basically brilliant.
I don't know about that. What's the other thing at the end of this? I'm the one who owns the duck, though.
That's true. But I was also the one who thought about using it. Anyways, I love this guy. I'm calling him
His
Howard.
name is Monsieur Le Quack.
Oh, Monsieur Le Quack. Makes so
Monsieur
much
Le
more
Quack,
sense.
yeah.
Anyway. Topic for today was, or is still, let's hope, is distraction in prayer. This was, I forget who made the comment, but it's probably not important to mention the name. Probably shouldn't, actually. But anyway, so someone was asking what to do with distraction in prayer. And I think that's like a really important point. If just because everybody gets distracted in prayer, I think everybody has a sense like, oh, when I start praying, like it's gonna be like this super cool thing. Like I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna like start levitating off the floor and God will. Well, let's calm down there, cowboy. And I know I would say probably almost every seminarian enters in with that. Like as soon as I spend like a week in seminary, I should start levitating by like week 2. It's like and like maybe week 3 if I'm like a little bit more sinful. It's like, but no, but distraction in prayer happens, and it's something that like I think you do grow into your sense of prayer. But anyway, I guess I wanted to talk about a couple different aspects of it, and then I'll bounce it off to Arnie. You can do some Googling on this too, I guess, if you wanted to. And I think there's a couple things. One, you probably want to discern first off what kind of distraction it is. And that's probably maybe the first thing. If it's a distraction if it's like a gnawing at you in such a way that like, okay, I should be thinking more deeply about this. Or if it's trying to draw you to something that's important. So say like there's a sin that you've been trying to avoid and that keeps coming up. Maybe that's the thing you need to like pray for forgiveness on, and then you can go back to your prayer. But if it's just something like, oh, it's scheduling, planning, or something like that, okay, that's just distraction. So those are maybe the two kinds of distraction we're talking about. If you talk about distraction, it's like, am I being drawn to something that God's trying to take me to in my prayer, or is it just like mindless distraction? So I see that Arnie's phone is also being, someone's calling her right now.
Hopefully that's not being picked up on the
I hope not. If it is, I'm terribly sorry. The other thing I think I would want to talk about is that be patient with yourself. Prayer is a virtue as it's described in the Catechism. So it's a habit that you build up over time. Like I said, by week 2 of like really seriously praying, you shouldn't be levitating. Like you probably will never levitate. I hate to break the news to you.
It was a great disappointment when I found that out.
It's hard. It's hard to know that one, but it's an important truth you need to learn. No, but like to recognize that like saints like Teresa of Avila, who was known for all of her mystical experiences, it didn't come till very late in her life that she actually started having these. She went through a lot of like conversions, then like fell back into like horrible sins and then came back, and she had this whole like back and forth before she ever got to that point. And I think even Saint Ignatius was talking about how like he's actually untrustworthy of like visions and stuff like that. But that's kind of to lead into say, don't look for just the high in prayer. Prayer is not about a high. Prayer is about a relationship with the Lord. And so think of it like I'm in the school of the master. Think about how many times you've sat in classrooms and you've gotten distracted. it's the same thing in prayer. I'm sitting in the school of the Lord. I'm sitting at the Master's feet, and I'm trying to learn from him. I'm reading his word, and then it's like, oh, butterfly. It's like, no. Or it's like, that actually worked pretty good. No, but the other thing is like, that's what happens in prayer. We do naturally get distracted because, and probably worse now than probably in years past, because we are so stimulated in our world. You know, we need the next high super quickly. Hence the phenomenon of people scrolling through Facebook for like hours because it's like, oh, just keep getting these little bites of things that just excite my brain. And so prayer is kind of the exact opposite of that, of sitting quietly. So it's, like I said, it's a virtue. Learn to kind of be okay with that. And maybe even learn to take it into your prayer. Like to say, look, okay, this thing is distracting me. Now it's just like, sometimes what I would do is kind of early on in my prayer too, is if I was getting distracted, I would say, okay, Lord, take care of this too. And then I would somehow that would kind of free me up to kind of go back to what I was trying to meditate on. And that's kind of maybe the bare bones, at least, of what I want to say.
Well, distractions happen to me a lot. And one, I don't know, I think it kind of depends on like what kind of prayer you're doing too, like to find the best method to get back into it. So if you're saying a rosary and your mind's wandering, it's easier to like go back to the rosary because you're just like think about something else. You're like, oh right, Hail Mary. So that's kind of easy to do. But when you're, let's say when you're meditating on scripture, or you're even in mass, or in a church service, and your brain just starts flittering off. I find with me, it's usually I find myself thinking about lists of things that I have to do, or things that I'm concerned about. So what I find helpful is I always have a little notebook with me. Is sometimes as I'm praying, I'll say, all right, Lord, I'm going to write down the things that I'm worried about and give them to you. And I find the physical act of writing down what I'm thinking about, not in length, just in lists. So for instance, laundry, or taxes, or reports, or something like that. Just the physical act of writing it down relaxes my brain enough to say, oh, you're not going to forget to do the laundry or the taxes or the reports. And it's also a nice way of being able to shut the book and say, putting this aside for now. So I found that to be helpful. But I think the overall important thing to remember is you're human, and you're going to get distracted. You know, you're not perfect. And just sort of learn to ride with it. Just kind of, it's going to be a kind of like a dance where you just keep going back and forth and back and forth. And I think just kind of keep trying, I think is the thing.
And like you said, it's kind of this back and forth. It's kind of this, prayer is a conversation. It's a time where, you're trying to connect more deeply with the Lord. You're trying to understand who he is and who you are in relationship to him. And that just takes time. It's a relationship. So, I mean, there's going to be times in your relationship with friends, your girlfriend or boyfriend, as the case may be, and you're going to just say, look, I mean, how many, the classic story of like the wife, saying like to her husband, are you listening to me? It's like, yeah, I mean, does he still love her? Does he still care about her? Will he still provide for her? Absolutely. But you tune out every now and then. It's like, it happens. We're human. It's part of that human relationship.
And here's another thing too. If you are getting distracted and it's by the same thing, as Rory said earlier, maybe you have to think about that or pray about that specific thing. Again, not necessarily your taxes, but if you are worried about your taxes, give it to God. Talk to him about it. I mean,
and I think it's probably maybe this is a bit of a tangent, but an important point nonetheless. I think
this is a video about being distracted. So go for it.
This is a thing. I don't even know what I was talking about. I kind of started thinking about something else. Crap. No. The
demonstration.
What was I thinking about? Yes, tangent. Backtracking here. God actually cares about you. It's not just about, he doesn't want this perfect version of you. Your distractions are part of you. So whatever it is that's distracting you, draw that into your prayer. So I'll make it stronger than what I said before, maybe just not do it. But really, this is a time that you are supposed to be relating everything about your being to God. And God's not surprised about anything you have to say. And maybe even if you think, I know God knows this, maybe it'd be worth actually even telling him it again, in your own private, in your heart, in your mind, telling God it again and saying, look, I know you know this, but this thing's really bothering me. Can we spend some time with this? This is the time for you to learn how to relate to the Lord who you serve. And that's, to me, I think that's kind of like the difference kind of between devotionals in some ways and maybe more personal prayer. And I would actually encourage you, if you're going into your prayer initially, I would say just take some time for those devotionals and those other things. So priests and seminarians, we pray this thing called the Breviary or the Liturgy of Hours. It happens 5 times a day. It's prayers with the Psalms, and there's other parts to it as well. There's intercessions. But anyways, you pray it 5 times a day. And so what oftentimes will happen is if I'm going to my holy hour, I'll start with that as a way of kind of letting my brain enter into the mode of prayer. Or I'll start with some good spiritual reading. You know, I don't even know who I'm reading. Who am I reading right now? I'm trying to think. I don't even know who I'm reading right now. But those kind of things, like let those things kind of allow them to draw you into that prayer.
Yeah, I think that's great advice because it definitely setting the stage for a deeper conversation is a great idea.
Yeah, it's kind of like you don't want to just like go into prayer and then suddenly just jump into the deep stuff.
Here's how my day's going, God.
Exactly. Which I mean, that's a legitimate form of prayer. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But like, if you want to spend time like really meditating and stuff, it's like you don't just like walk into a room and just start like blurting out your stuff to your friend. Well, maybe you do, but you often like shake their hand. It's like you shake their hand. You say, well, not anymore. You don't shake hands anymore.
No, we don't shake hands.
So
now.
you have air high fives or thought high fives. I don't know what you people do. But that was I don't know why that was funny. I think it's just the end of a long day. I'm kind of laughing. That was funny.
That deserves an air high five.
Yeah. Okay.
Even then, I missed.
I think we. I feel like we're sort of running out of steam, but
the important thing is persistence. Keep
persistence.
trying.
Yes. Yep. And yes, just keep going back to it. It's a virtue. You grow in it. It happens. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be highs. It's gonna be lows. Probably more lows than highs. I'm not gonna lie to you, but that's what a good friendship is. And as the priest who baptized me and was our pastor for many years, Father Mo likes to say. He says, "What was it? Love is fidelity between ecstasies." So it's the sense of when you meet somebody new and you're like so excited to know them, something like that. It's like this great high about knowing them, and then it's like you sort of get to know them a little more. It's like, okay, it's sort of mundane, something like that, and then you get another high by finding out something else about them, or you get to know them in a new way, and like that's a high. But they're being their friend between those highs. That's what like love is. It's like I'm loving you even when like you're down at the chops or you're not interesting to me, and you're not doing anything for me. That's like that. So if you want to understand like maybe like what a good sense of maybe if you want to go in with that to my prayer, it's like I'm going to be distracted. I'm going to be this, but this is either me loving God by being faithful between ecstasies, or it's God loving me between my ecstasies and my highs for him, and my being super devoted and not being devoted, my being distracted and not being distracted. So maybe a two-way on that.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, not bad, right?
And considering all the tangents we were.
There were a lot of tangents. I think we answered the question. I mean, probably not like to the best of your ability, but also if you have any comments, thoughts,
or strategies for getting through distractions.
Or strategies to get through
I could
distractions.
certainly use a few more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Always use a few more of those. Leave a comment. Also, ask any more questions because we're sort of kind of running this on the fly, and we're not sure if there's gonna be another one. Maybe there will be. But keep interested and keep commenting. So I think that's it.
Yeah. So thank you and God bless.